Hey Dragons, this is Unit 11 Day 5. This is the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is a tool which will help you find the answers to any quadratic problem. Anything that fits this bill that has a variable to the second power that is a quadratic. So anything that is in that form, you can use this formula. If you're curious as to how this formula came about, basically they take this equation and they solve it for x. This equation is currently solved for y, but now it's going to solve for x. You can Google it, and there's plenty of videos that'll show you how to do it. But here's the formula. So basically, you have to be able to, first of all, make sure your equation is set equal to 0. So if you look at problem number 1, this one is good to go. Problem number 2, this one is good to go. Problem number 3 is not. We can fix that. Problem 4 is not. We can fix that as well. I'll show you in just a second. Problem 5, ready to go. Problem 6, ready to go. Even though the 0 is first, it doesn't matter. One side of the equation is equal to 0. You are ready to go. So basically what we've done here with all of these blanks is we've created what I call a shopping list. We're going to go shopping with our equation, and we're going to pick up the parts that we need. And once we have the parts, we're going to plug it into our formula. We're going to substitute numbers for letters, and we're going to let the calculator do the work for us. You ready? Here we go. Let's do problem number 2. I feel even today. So as we look at problem number 2, let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger so it looks good. So if you remember, the number in front of x squared is considered a. So what is the number in front of the x squared? It's a 2. So write down a 2 for a. B is the number in front of x to the first. Here's x to the first. What is the number in front of that, including the sign? B is a -4. Write that down. See how we're filling out our shopping list right here? C is the constant, or the y-intercept, the number without a variable. And again, that's after it's set equal to 0. So C is going to be a -18. So again, the process: set your quadratic equal to 0. The number in front of x squared is a. The number in front of x is b. And the number in front of, the number without a variable is your c. Make sure you keep the sign that is in front of the coefficient so that you know what to use. Alright, so if b is -4, negative b is going to be the opposite. So if you look right here, these are going to be opposites. So if I wrote down a -4 for b, I'm going to write down a +4 for negative b, or the opposite of b. Okay, so now if we take b squared, where that means that we're going to take b and multiply it by itself. A negative times a negative is a positive. Make sure you get the sign right on this. Ladies and gentlemen, b squared, when you square a number, it will always be positive. You should have a positive number on every section on this paper that says b squared. That's going to be positive. That's going to be positive. That's going to be positive. If you're plugging these into your calculator and you're getting a negative, you're plugging it in wrong. You use parentheses. Negative times a negative is a positive every time. All right. 4 times a times c. So we take the number 4, and then we're going to multiply it by a. Look at your shopping list. A is 2, so plug in a 2 for that. And c, look at your shopping list. That's a -18. Pick up your calculator and figure out what all of this is equal to. So I've got, what, 4 times 2 times a negative 18. What is that? It's a negative 144. Okay? Now this is a combination of the two things that I have right here. So there's a minus sign, so I want you to put a minus sign. Okay? What is b squared? Look at your list. B squared was 16. Put that in front of your minus sign. And what was your 4AC? My 4AC, look at your shopping list. Your 4AC was a negative 144. Please note that you're subtracting a negative. So let your calculator do that. And if you subtract a negative, okay, I'll show you right here. We got 16. Minus sign is over here. This minus. And then negative is the white button. Negative 144. And it's 160. Okay? So now we're getting close to really getting our answer. So after you do this, you're going to be able to zip through this really fast, or at least that is our hope. So here we go. One of our answers is going to be the opposite of b. Look at your list. The opposite of b is 4 plus, and then the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Look at your list. b squared minus 4ac we already did. What is it? It's 160. And all of that is divided by 2 times a. Look at your list. A is 2. So this horrible looking monstrosity with letters and square roots and all of that stuff right there, we have put numbers into place. And so we're going to have our answer. Now, I want you on this example, after you type in the top, I want you to press enter, because this fraction bar is a grouping symbol. It's like parentheses. Alright, so you can either put the top in parentheses, or my fix is to always press enter after you do the top. So here we go. Typing this in, just like I see it. I'm going to try to get in the camera. You ready? Here we go. 4 plus the square root of 160. Enter. And now divided by, because that's a fraction bar, 2 times 2. Okay? So, my answer, hang on, oh, I'm sorry, we need to make that a 4. Let's try this again. 4 plus the square root, sorry about that, 160, and then we're going to divide that by 4. This is 2 times 2. Make that a 4. Okay? Much better. Now, this decimal goes on forever. Chop it off at a couple of decimal points. Your answer is approximately 4.16. That's where this parabola crosses the x-axis. If you put this in your calculator and you do a second trace and find the 0, that's what's going to pop up at the bottom of your screen. Now, the other answer, remember we have 2 answers, possible answers here. We're going to come over here. The only thing we're going to do is change this plus sign to a minus. See? The only difference between this one and this one is this minus sign. So I'm just going to copy everything down except a plus. I'm going to use a minus. Alright, remember I'm pressing enter, or I'm using parentheses on the top. Okay, so here we go. The other answer is 4 minus the square root of 160, enter, divided by 4. So the other answer is about a negative 2.16. And those are your 2 answers. This is where the parabola crosses the x-axis at these 2 points. And that's how you use the quadratic formula. Alright, way too much time on that. So let me speed up. I'll do one more. This one is not set equal to 0. So I'm going to move, I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to zero this out because this will be less work. Opposite of negative is a positive. So I'm going to add 2x squared to both sides. And so my equation now is 0 is equal to 2x squared. I'm putting it in standard form. Plus 6x, quadratic term first, linear term second, and the constant is last. You could zero out the 6x and the negative 7, and it's still going to work. That's the beauty of the formula. All right, so A is 2, B is 6, and C is a negative 7. I'm taking the numbers in front of the quadratic, linear, and constant term. Okay? If B is 6, what's negative B? It's negative 6. Remember, B squares are always positive. This answer will be positive. 6 times 6 is 36. 4 times A times C. 4 is always there. A is 2. And C is a negative 7. So that's 8 times a negative 7, which is a negative 56. 8 times negative 7, negative 56. All right, so now I'm going to use put my minus sign. B squared is 36. That goes in front of the minus sign. 4AC is a negative 56. So just like the last one, I'm subtracting a negative. See how I'm just taking numbers from my shopping list? Once I have these down, I'm going to start using numbers. Alright, so what does that give me? I think that gives me a 92. If you put it in your calculator, double check me on that. And I'm ready to go. Here we go. One answer is negative B. Shopping list says negative 6 plus the square root of B squared minus 4AC. I already did that. What was it? It's 92. I press enter, or I put this in parentheses, and then 2 times A, 2 times 2 is going to be a 4. So I'm going to do all of this stuff right here, and I'm going to divide it by 4. Let's let the calculator take over. Here we go. And again, practice makes faster. So a negative 6 plus the square root of 92. Enter. Divided by 4. My first answer is approximately 0.8, or actually, if I round it to 2 decimal places, this would be 0.90. Okay? And now, the next answer will be the same thing, except this will be a minus sign instead of a plus. So negative 6 minus the square root of 92 all over 4. So again, let the calculator crunch your numbers. The only difference I'm going to do, I'm going to change that to a minus sign. So negative 6 minus the square root of 92. Enter, divided by the same old 4 as last time. So this answer is going to be approximately negative 3.90. Okay. If you want to go out to more decimals, you can. It doesn't really matter. So again, the process. You must set your equation equal to 0. That's what I did right here. If you have to move things around, do it. You must be able to identify your quadratic, your x squared, and the coefficient, in this case a 2, the linear term, 6x, so the coefficient is 6, and the constant or y-intercept is going to be a negative 7. And once you have A, B, and C, now you're just manipulating those numbers with the parts that are needed for the quadratic formula. And then once you get down here, all you're going to need for the formula is you're going to need this guy right here. You're going to need the negative b, and then you're going to need the square root of b squared minus 4ac, so you're going to need this row right here, and then you're going to need to multiply 2 times a. So once you get all of your list, these first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines in, you're really only using this guy, and the square root of b squared minus 4ac.